Hello, my name is John Sercombe. I'm the Software Development Director at Digimap Limited in Guernsey. We've been working on adding features over the last few weeks to Igor, the tax exchange of information system, in order to allow financial institutions to report documents for CRS using the CRS XML schema, and also so that they can submit corrections to those documents, also using the CRS correction specification, and also so that we can forward those documents on to destination countries and implement the CRS correction spec in order to send on changes which have been reported to us by financial institutions. I'm going to show you how that works. I've created a financial institution for CRS reporting. At the moment we're just using the US GINs. At some point we may use some other external ID, or we may assign an ID internally, but for the purpose of testing, using the US GINs works just as well. If I now go to submit a report for a financial institution, I've now got the option to use the Common Reporting Standard report type. And I've got a few reports that I've prepared to show you the various features of how we've implemented the correction specification. So the first one is an XML report which reports to France. If I open it up, and we can have a look at it. So you can see this is coming in from an FI. They're giving their own GIN at the moment, and they are reporting the details of their reporting FI. They're using the doc type to indicate that this is new data. And they're also providing a single account report here, also new data obviously, for a Mr. Client who is a tax resident in France and has an account balance of £1,000. So if I open that up, I can submit that into Igor. At this point, Igor has done its validation. It's checked that the XML that's been submitted meets the XSD schema for CRS, and it shows on the screen a little tabular version of the information, so we can see we've got Mr. Client, resident in France. Now, over on the income tax administration screens behind Igor, we've now got the ability to forward reports. So I can say I want to forward on to a destination country reports in respect of a particular reporting period. So I happen to know the reporting period that we're going to work with is 2014. So I've put in the date of the 2014 year end. And I'm going to say I want to generate an output for France. This is a user interface that we probably don't anticipate the users will eventually use. It'll probably be forwarded automatically, but we've put this in for testing so that we can show it working now. So I've got an output folder here, so I can see the reports that I've generated. So if I click this generate button here, nothing apparently happens. But if I look in the output folder, you'll see I've now got a report that's been generated, and this is using the message identifier following the CRS recommendations for naming those. So if I open this XML file, so this is coming now from the Guernsey Tax Authority to France. This is new CRS data, and we're simply passing on the data we've been provided. You'll note we've rewritten the docref IDs because we're going to provide our own docref IDs. But apart from that, this is basically the same information that was originally supplied to us by the FI. Now, if I go back to the FI interface, suppose I want to in some way correct that information. I've got one here, a CRS document, which is a message which changes the balance of the account holder. So here's the account holder again, Mr. Client, and his balance is now 2,000 instead of 1,000. And I've put in the docref IDs and the core docref IDs to indicate that we're updating that data. Our interpretation of the correction specification is that if we're providing a reporting group in an account report, we also have to provide a reporting FI. That's required by the XSD schema. So I've provided a report FI here, which has exactly the same details as the original one. But also, because we're not allowed to mix new data and corrected data in CRS reports, we've had to specify that the doc type here is OECD2 for corrected data. That's what we interpret that the specification requires us to do. So if I now submit that report into Igor, again, it just shows us a tabular version of that information. I can now go back over to our admin screen and click my generate button again. Now what it's doing now is it's only picking up the extra bits, the extra correction that we've just submitted. It already knows that the previous report was generated and will be forwarded. So it just creates a report for the changes. So here we go. Now this is producing a report with the same changes as we received from the FI. We've rewritten the docref and the core.ref, and those match the docref that we previously supplied in the first report that we sent out to France. Now, the way that we've implemented the correction process means that if we don't generate, what we did there is we generated one report with we supplied one report with new data and then generated output, and then supplied another report with a correction and generated output. And it might be the case that an FI submits to Igor new data and a correction of that data before we do any forwarding at all, in which case it would be nice to not actually submit the new data and the correction separately, but just to submit the corrected data as if it was new to the target country. That's exactly what Igor does. I'm just going to cheekily delete what I've done so far so that I can show you what happens if we submit that data again. So if I go back to the beginning, so I've just deleted the reports that I've already created there. I'll just get rid of the output as well so we don't get too confused. So if I submit my original report, so that's the report with the balance of 1,000. There we go. I think down here we'll see the balance is 1,000 and it's new data. And now I'm going to submit the correction from the FI without doing any forwarding on the income tax interface of Igor. So I've submitted the correction as well. Now I go to the tax interface and generate output from there. And what that will do now is it will simply generate a single XML document. If I look in this XML document, it's new data, and it shows the corrected account balance of 2,000. So the tax authority in the country that we're sending the data to never sees the original incorrect data, it only sees the correction. So, what other types of correction can we take? Well, what about if there's an extra account? If I have a look at this XML document here, so this is working from we're still reporting for the same FI, but we're going to add another account. Now, although the CRS specification says that new data shouldn't be mixed with corrected data within a report, we felt that it would be helpful to the FIs in Guernsey if we did allow that in Igor. So Igor does allow FIs to report to Igor a mixture of new and corrected data. So we can report the reporting FI as a corrected record, so it's got the doc type of OECD2, but that we've added a completely new account report. So this is an account report with a new reporting type, OECD1, and just its own new docref, and some new information about this new client, Mr. Blogs. So if I submit that report into Igor. And that's there. Now if I generate now if we just take a look here, you see we've had one report so far. That was the original Mr. Client account. So if I click my generate button now, we see 2 new outputs generated. The reason for this is that we've had reported to us a change in the details of the reporting FI and a new account. We want to forward that, but we can't forward it as a mixed report because the CRS spec doesn't allow that. The output that Igor sends out from for CRS to the destination country does strictly conform to the CRS specification. So we get 2 messages out. This one is the one for the new account, but we've reported a new reporting FI with a copy of the data from the original reporting FI. And the other report is simply a correction of the reporting FI. So we're just, if you like, updating the docref IDs because we've received effectively a null correction. At some point in the future with Igor, we may well amend it so that it doesn't actually forward corrections like this one here, because this is actually a null correction. All this information is exactly the same as what the destination country already has. But the main thing is that both of the messages that are being forwarded here do strictly conform to the CRS spec, even though we're accepting input from the FIs which doesn't strictly conform. Now, what happens if we now change the details of that reporting FI? So here's the next correction I've put together. So this is the FI telling us that the reporting FI isn't in High Street anymore, they're now in Low Street. So we've provided a docref and a core.ref ID and a doc type index to say that this is a correction of the reporting FI's details. Another little deviation that we've made from the CRS correction spec is that it says that when a record is being corrected, the core.ref ID must reference the last version of the record that has been submitted. Igor doesn't quite apply that rule in that way. We've deliberately done this because we feel that some financial institutions may find it easier not to have to keep track of all the different versions of docrefs that they've sent us. So they could actually just continue to use the original identifier. That might be something that's easier for them to generate from their core systems. So it does, in fact, Igor will in fact allow you to use any docref ID that's ever been used for a particular record as the core docref ID, and it will be assumed that that correction supersedes everything that's previously been sent. So I'm not going to show you the other records, but in fact this record here does use a core.ref ID that isn't the latest one, it's a different one. So I'm now going to submit that change. So this doesn't contain any account reports, it's only a change to the details of the reporting FI. And now if I generate here, so at the moment we've got 3 reports there. I'm now going to generate that, and now we've got an extra output to France. And if we have a look at this, you'll see it's got that correction to Low Street, but it's actually got it twice. The reason it's got it twice is because in order to generate strict documents for CRS before, we had to create a new copy of the reporting FI's data, and now we've had a correction to the original reporting FI. We have to produce 2 corrections because we know that the destination country has 2 copies, and we need to update both copies because of the information that the financial institution has given to us. moving on now. So far we've only dealt with a record that's for a person resident in France, but obviously for CRS people can have dual residence, and we could also have accounts reported that have a mixture of countries in the same reporting group. Needless to say, as you see so far, we've generated things for France and it's produced our output. Had we asked for a different country, it would have produced nothing, because nothing's been received for any other country. But this one here changes that. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the same reporting FI. If I just scroll down, we'll see that Mr. Client now has dual residence in France and Germany. So I will submit that into Igor, and we'll see that's reflected down here now. So we've got correction and then the 2 country codes. So now firstly I want to generate output for France. So here's the new one for France. And we can see we've got a correction to Mr. Client and the 2 res country codes, one for France and one for Germany. But of course, we now also have the potential to create a report for Germany. So if I put that into capitals, if I put the destination country as Germany and click the button, we now see we've got a report. Instead of FR here, we've got DE to signify that's for Germany. And we can see that this is now a new report. Germany's never had any information about this reporting FI, has never had any information about this client. So we're producing a completely new report, new .ref IDs, everything is OECD1, new data. And finally, I think, yes, we've got a report to remove a country. So in this case, still working with the same client, but this time we've taken France out. So he's no longer resident in France according to this update. So this is obviously corrections data. This is not, I mean, every report that I've done has had the same reporting period, otherwise these corrections wouldn't be accepted. It's also worth noting that a feature of Igor is that it's checking these .ref IDs and the Coral .ref IDs when we submit the reports online. It wouldn't accept them if duplicate .ref IDs were used. It wouldn't accept them if the Coral.ref IDs were ones that hadn't previously been submitted, because it's checking all of that at the time the document is submitted, and it can send an error back to the FI submitting the document at the time of submission, so we make sure that we don't accept documents and then have to deal with processing errors and send messages back or phone them up or send them an email later on. It's all done straight away, so the FI can be absolutely confident that their document was correct at the time they submitted it. So when I submit this remove country now, I know now, it says it's submitted successfully, that I did get my .ref IDs unique. I did get my Coral.ref IDs to actually match up with some previous Coral.ref ID. So now I've removed France. So if we now generate another report for Germany, here we go. We can see a correction for Mr. Client, and France is no longer in his countries, it's only Germany. And then if I want to now generate for France, because we've removed that client from France, that means that we have to tell France about that. And that comes to France in this form. It's an OECD 3 account report, so it's a deletion. And the information that we show is the last information that we sent to France. Regardless of what the FI sends us, we will send to France the last thing we saw. So we don't tell France what the new details are. We don't tell them if his country of residence had changed to something else, or if it's because if for some reason he just doesn't exist anymore. That information isn't sent to France. It's simply a deletion and a copy of exactly the same as the last thing that we sent. I hope that's been useful for you to get an overview of the whole correction process, and to see in action now the ability to register financial institutions for CRS, to submit CRS documents, and to see that we've implemented the sorting of the account reports in a robust way so that we can then forward them on to destination countries and make sure that they're able to handle any corrections or updates that we've received from the financial institutions.